What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Ball Talk with Boyd, and I have just a series of guests, and the string of guests that I've been able to provide for you guys is unbelievable, and I have another unbelievable guest with some extremely unique experience and a very good mentor and family friend of mine. We got my guy Kash Shaikh in the building. Kash, welcome to the show. How we doing, man?
Ball Talk with Boyd. Finally, we're making it happen. I can't wait, dude. Love what you've been building and just pumped to be here with you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It's been a blessing to get all this up and moving, and I've had some, like I said, amazing guests, and to add you to the resume, I couldn't be happier. So without further ado, let's get rolling. So I like to introduce you as the sports marketing maven. You have sports marketing down to a T, and that's something that you have been doing for a little bit, but I know that you didn't always start in the sports field. So I know that you spent a good amount of time at Procter Gamble doing a lot of their global marketing and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit, just briefly, about your background and how you got into marketing, and then we'll get into how that switched over into sports.
Yep. Yeah, man. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Went to school at
H-Town.
Yes, sir. And went to school at UT in Austin, hook 'em horns. And then right out of school, man, I spent 10 years at Procter Gamble, and all of it on the marketing, brand building, social content side. I'm about 45 years old, man. So I'm an old man now. So when I started, social media was just popping off. I mean, really, like my first full year at Procter Gamble was 2003 when Facebook just launched. So
Wow.
I had the opportunity to like grow up in the business world with social, which is, a lot like you got to grow up in your childhood, but it was interesting to be able to be in the marketing brand building world as social media was growing, because obviously everything was evolving so quickly. But at P&G, I got to lead marketing for brands like Old Spice and Tide and Gillette and things like that. Obviously focused on the broader business, 7.5 years in Cincinnati, 2.5 years with a global assignment, getting to work in over 50 countries with Procter & Gamble, really getting inspired by different cultures, different communities, seeing how we're all more similar than we are different. And, it wasn't a sports focus, Spencer, but because guys like you and me love sports, I always try to find a way to integrate a sports component, a sponsorship, an activation that would not only be something, of course, that I was excited about, but that could help build the business. So I had the opportunity at P&G to work on things like the Olympic campaign. I helped with our NFL partnership. I did things with athletes, started bringing people like Venus and Serena Williams into the fold. Obviously, Gillette and Old Spice, we did a lot with athletes from NASCAR to football. So that's where, I really started to say, hey, this is a pretty cool opportunity to be able to be in marketing and brand building, but integrate sports into it. Then I left P&G after 10 years to go lead marketing at GoPro in the early days, the camera company. And
So how early was that because it was what, 2012 when you were there, right?
Yeah, man. When I went to GoPro, it was literally a one-story white cottage on the edge of the Pacific Ocean in Half Moon Bay, California. It was
Wow.
I was about the 50th employee, but there were probably like 40 videographers that they were there, and
Yeah.
a bunch of surfers, skaters, snowboarders. I was a brown boy from Texas that grew up playing football, baseball, basketball. So I was an alien when I went there for sure. My mom freaked out because we went from, and you've been in Cincinnati, so we went from the P&G Towers to this little cottage,
Yeah.
and my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing?" But it was an amazing experience, man. When I went there, they were already killing it. They were doing about $120 million in revenue per year, but
Wow.
within
Okay.
18 months, by really supercharging three things: athlete partnerships. First thing I did in my first week, we signed Shaun White, one of the most prolific Olympic athletes of all time, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, Kelly Slater, one of the best surfers of all time. We started bringing athlete marketing into it. We started doing what we call Project BOA, a BOA constrictor hold on all action and adventure sports events, putting our brand everywhere, and then really pushing our social and content machine. And within 18 months, within 18 months, we were over $1 billion in revenue. So it was a, it was a rocket ship that I had the blessing and opportunity to be a part of, and really was able to go from a big corporate machine where I learned so much about, brand values, human values, purpose, principles, leadership, and then go to a startup that was a rocket ship, a fast growing startup that we grew from that little cottage to two 45,000 square foot buildings in the middle of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
That was an amazing experience. And then, Spencer, as you know, pretty much the last 13 years, I've been on my own entrepreneurial journey. Started a company called Be Somebody that was a learning marketplace that I was able to exit in 2017. Then built a training platform focused on underserved communities that I was able to sell in 2018. Ended up, selling a portion of that to the Kroger company, and staying on to help Kroger, another Cincinnati company, great
Yeah.
company, was going to
And
just
that's
stay on.
when
Yes.
Be Somebody is when I came in contact with you. That's when I started to understand you, and that's when
Yeah.
Dahani Jones introduced us to each other at one of those polo matches, right?
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Early days, So you're an OG in the Be Somebody family. That was like a reverse engineered way of building a brand too, of just like starting with community and content and then letting
Mm-hmm.
kind of and the product manifest. So that was another
Yeah.
great experience. And then basically after that started my agency BSB, again focused on marketing, but then building sports connections and campaigns through it. Started working with a lot of MLB athletes. Did the first Joe Burrow deal of his career when he was drafted. Got him signed with Kroger. Started working with NFL athletes like Derrick Henry, Trey Young on the basketball side, and I started really to fall in love with it. So created BSB Sports, our sports division, started representing athletes on really everything off the field. So not
Mm-hmm.
their contracts, but endorsements, investments, real estate,
Yeah.
philanthropy, and then really
Because
started.
correct me if I'm wrong, you were probably one of the first in Southwest Ohio, probably in the whole Midwest region, to really pick up on the NIL service when all of that really became a legal thing. Because I remember when that was announced as a legal thing, and I feel like I was seeing you and BSB doing all these things
Yeah.
instantly. It was like you guys were ready to go during that process.
Yeah, man. I mean, I started actually UFC and MLB, and then NIL. We were really the first out there. I mean, we were the
Yeah.
largest NIL agency in 2021, 2022. We had over 300 athletes. And
Yeah.
you know, big part of my career, Spencer, has been I've always been early, sometimes too early, because
Mm-hmm.
timing is such an important part of building a business.
Yeah.
Probably would be somebody I was 2 years early. My training platform, I was a year early.
Yeah.
NIL, we were honestly, we were still about 6 months early because that whole NIL landscape shifted so quickly with the introduction of collectives and things like
Yeah.
that made it more kind of complex. But we're always sensing it because I like to kind of be on the forefront. I like to be the tip of the spear. You know what I mean? When I'm building something, but built that, and then basically really started when we expanded past NIL, working with retired baseball players and legends, including Barry Larkin, another Cincinnati guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
became really close with Lark, and long story short, came up with a crazy idea in 2022 to take baseball to the Middle East and South Asia. Um, my dad was born in India, my mom was born in Pakistan, I was born in Texas, but I always felt like connected to that area and wanted to help. There's 2 billion people in that part of the world. 1 billion
Yeah.
of them are cricket fans, so I call it the bat and ball epicenter of the universe. And they know how to hit, catch, run, and throw, and we wanted to teach them baseball, and did that for about 4 years. Built the whole league and infrastructure ecosystem from scratch, and just had an exit opportunity a couple months ago, as you and I were talking about before the show, and took advantage of that. And now I know I'm already probably talking about what we're going to talk about, but now I'm rocking my latest thing, Perfect Game, and
Yes, sir.
in the hotbed of youth sports and amateur competitive baseball, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, that is the best recap of what you have done that I have heard, man. Thank you for doing that. So, man, I don't even know where to start because there's so many wonderful things that you just covered, and I almost kind of want to go back to the GoPro because I feel like that in the time period that you were with and saying that you signed Shaun White and everything, that was literally when I remember seeing the first commercials for GoPro, and
Yep.
everyone was trying to get their hands on it because they were like, oh, well, I was a swimmer in high school and in college, as you know. So a lot of swimmers were like, oh, we got to go get some GoPros and we're going to start swimming
Right.
and doing practice with it and all that. So tell me, what was one of your favorite projects that you did with GoPro? And then tell me what was one of the challenges that you faced in such a rapidly growing industry with a brand like that.
Well, I mean, unquestionably, favorite project was I got to quarterback the launch of the Hero 3 camera. And now I think they're on like Hero 17 or 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
Shows you how long ago it was, but I wanted to create this adventure experience that really brought to life the DNA of the brand,
Yeah.
and I wanted to invite media and influencers out to San Francisco to our office to really experience the camera in the most like exciting, exhilarating ways. So I created something that was a land, air, sea adventure
Mm-hmm.
and invited 60 influencers and press, like the big content creators and like the Wall Street Journal. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, the invite said, it talked about a new GoPro launch, and it said, choose your adventure, land, air, or sea. And that's the invite. And they had to choose their adventure. Then they came to the launch event, and Friday night we had an opening, dinner banquet, and everybody was hanging out. We had a great vibe. I brought a lot of our athletes there. Obviously, our core leaders, our team, our CEO Nick Woodman, who's a visionary that I really got to learn from. And then I got up and I shared. I'm like, you guys know you pick land, air, or sea. Y'all want to see what you're going to be doing in those categories? And they're like, yeah. And basically, then I shared with them what their adventure would be the next day. Land
Ah.
Land was basically two experiences. One was called Two Up Ducati motorcycle, motorbike racing, and then another one was car racing, like NASCAR racing around the track.
Yeah.
Everyone was happy. I'm trying to remember. It's been 13 years. Air was a hot air balloon, base jumping hot air balloons. And then
Yeah.
the second one was aerobatic flying in an L-39 fighter jets, and I chose air, by the way. But so I flew an L-39. They're Eastern European, like
Yeah.
aerobatic planes. The
Oh
craziest shit
man.
in my life, 6 Gs. But when I went up on the hot air balloon, I chickened out, man. I did not base jump. I just went up because we let people stay in the balloon if they don't want to. So I saw the view. I saw a couple people jumping. I'm like, all right, I'm done.
I'm chill. Yeah.
And then C was diving, scuba diving,
Scuba diving. Yeah.
yeah, in the Bay Area, in this beautiful area in San Francisco. And then the last part of C was with the Oracle sailing team, because the America's Cup was just happening to be in town, and we were a partner, so they got to get on the real America's Cup boats with the Oracle racing team. So, dude, it's the most epic launch event I still will say versus anything ever out there. The content that came out
Yeah.
was insane. And everybody really like fell in love with the brand. And then that Hero 3 is still, I believe, today the biggest, per capita launch we've ever done. Um,
Yeah.
and kind of like, became a little bit of my imprint on the brand. And then I left, after that was successful, and it was a good time to jump.
Man, so that is actually such a sweet campaign rollout. I seriously might have to look up some of the content that came out of it because I
Yeah.
bet it still looks super sick to this day.
Yeah, you got to look up the Hero 3 launch video too. Even that music, when I hear it, like really, it brings back the emotion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The whole feeling of it. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah.
So then tell me, what was one of the challenges of again being part of something that was growing so rapidly?
It's a great question, Spencer, and I really have learned this over the years, and I feel like God has given me the blessing, the opportunity to kind of be at perfect game where I am now at a similar
Mm-hmm.
moment in the company's history and the company's path, because GoPro exploded. You know, it had been around for 10 years. Nick used to always say we're a 10-year overnight success. And
Mm-hmm.
the founder and but at that explosive point, when you're growing so fast and scaling as a business, but also as an organization, you have to shape shift into a different animal as an organization, and you're kind of shedding your startup skin, and you're becoming, a big boy or big girl company. And in that process, it doesn't work well for everybody. You have to. It's a crazy, um, you know, more art than science journey that you have to have and learn as a leader. And it's how do you retain the core of who you are as a brand, as a company, the DNA of your culture, but then bring in the right people who have different backgrounds, who have different skill sets. Understand that you need more structure, you need more
Mm-hmm.
resources, you need more organization. Know that you're going from, like me at Baseball United, I'm writing our press releases, posting our social copy in year one, being the talent on the field, closing our sponsorships, closing our investors, designing our ballpark. That's startup life. And then when you start to grow, it's like, all right, Cash, your job now is just marketing,
Yep.
or your job. So, and that's hard for people to make that
It
shift.
is.
It's
It
hard for
is.
the organization, and I believe that was a challenge with GoPro, to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you. Looking back, like that shift of when we brought in and they brought in, and I ended up leaving, a lot more people to help scale it. Some of the magic got lost, and I know Nick and them were trying, tried obviously to to keep it or to revive it, but it's really hard to do. And now, and obviously I built my own company, so I always learn from that. We built BSB into a pretty big business, 15 to $20 million a year revenue company, from nothing, which is a
Yeah.
crazy story in itself. But Perfect Game reminds me a lot about GoPro, where I am now at PG. Perfect Game is the largest competitive amateur baseball platform in the world, largest scouting database, 10,000 tournaments a year, 42 states, 20,000 teams. About a couple million really talented kids coming through the system from 6 to 18, doing about 100 million, a little over 120 million dollars a year, similar to GoPro, just this brand that's about to explode. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I can sense that we're growing in the same. Even me coming in, like there's people who've been part, and PG is older than GoPro. Perfect Game's been around for 23 years or 30 years actually. 23 years has been the most senior employee. He's like, I've been here 23 years. I'm like, holy shit. But but the rapid growth has really taken off this last few years.
Yeah.
And what I keep telling people, and I see people and feel some of the OGs a little bit nervous, are like, okay, these corporate people are coming in. I'm less corporate now than I was, but when I went to GoPro, I was a corporate Procter and Gamble proctoid. Now I've
Yeah.
been in
You wear a
entrepreneurship
suit.
world. Yeah, I literally wore a suit,
Yeah,
and
you wear a suit.
they're like, oh, you can't wear a suit out here. I'm like, no, I'm going to stay who I am. I dress, I was the only one at P&G that wore a suit all the time, and I
Yeah.
stayed true to that. But I shouldn't have, Spencer, because I should have probably embraced the culture a bit more. After
Mm-hmm.
6 months, I was in a t-shirt and flip flops, but the first 6 months I was coming in my suit. But at PG, what I've been telling people is, look, you can like structure and corporate aren't the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Being more organized and having a plan and not just going a billion miles per hour, like going 100 miles per hour, but having a plan and priorities, that's not corporate. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have, and entrepreneurs and people in this startup culture, like the word corporate starts to, it's almost like nails on a chalkboard. And I feel blessed because I live both and I see the
Mm-hmm.
benefit of both. But people
Mm-hmm.
get scared of that term, it's a great lesson, man, to be able to say, look, we need to grow, we need to scale, we need to get more organized. We need people with more experience, we need more focus. but we're not becoming corporate. We're staying, and like I always tell my wife too, when we pitch um, um, clients with the agency, like you can be professional, but still personable. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like these things that live right together are important as you grow and build a business.
I feel like that kind of resonates to something that I've learned a little bit more as I'm developing and growing in the industry, is that authenticity is such a gift that something that a lot of people don't always embrace. And being authentic will do more for you than a lot of things will, because when people see your true authenticity coming out through yourself, I feel like that makes them feel that they can talk to you more, that they can trust you more, and they can work with you more, and all of those things. So yeah, I would
You know,
absolutely agree with all those.
yeah, man, I agree with you. Just being real.
Yeah,
You know, I believe in honesty is a core value, which basically means don't lie, tell the truth, but also transparency. And the way I
yeah,
define transparency is having the courage to have difficult conversations, to talk about things that are a little bit uncomfortable. But I'll be honest with you, Spencer, and that's kind of been my kind of claim to fame is what I talk about building my companies from B somebody to BSB to BSB Sports. With Baseball United, that became such a massive undertaking, working with MLB legends and, Hall of Famers and all these people. Honestly, I learned that transparency sometimes, when you're the leader, uh, maybe is not the best approach because, and again, I'm being honest with you, some people, don't like the directness of transparency. And when you're in a, but me, I don't like the bullshit people. And I'm like, if
mm-hmm,
I'm like, hey Spencer, look, you're killing it in these three areas, but these two, dude, you suck last week.
yeah,
You you suck last week, and here's why. And by the way, I'm telling you this because I believe in you, and and I know that you can do much better than this. You have the talent, you have the ability. So we got to figure out how to get there.
yeah,
And what I learned with BU, working across the world, different cultures, we had to push so hard and so fast. Sometimes that transparency, folks didn't like it, and
mm-hmm,
it's a learning for me, man, because my mom's always like, you got to keep. I'm sure our moms are similar. Like, take everything that you can in real time and learn constantly.
yeah,
Always trying. And now I would say transparency is still a value of mine,
mm-hmm.
but targeted transparency.
Time
Because
and place,
yeah, time and place and also
or
intensity. Maybe the
okay,
intensity, I probably was too intense at times
okay,
during the Baseball United journey because it was so freaking hard. You
yeah,
know, imagine, like, you're swimming, if you're swimming 50 laps versus a thousand laps, the you feel different, you know,
absolutely,
and if your success going from one end of the pool to the other is dependent on seven, 10 other, 20 other people, the intensity is harder the more, tired you are, the more that you're working. So
mm-hmm,
all these were great learnings for me, and I think it's really helped me a lot, and I feel grateful for it as I moved into this new role with Perfect Game.
yeah. So you've mentioned how with GoPro there were some of those extreme sports, so like snowboarding, skydiving, things like that. And then you mentioned how with BSB you got Joe Burrow some deals, and you got some other people some deals with other organizations and marketing. But then you started a baseball league, and now you're working with the biggest youth baseball sport league corporation in the world, arguably. So, what brought you to baseball, and what made you stick with baseball after doing some stuff with other sports?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, from a sporting standpoint, baseball is my first love.
Yeah.
Um, I my claim to fame is my T-ball team when I was 5 years old won our state championship here in Texas. And most of the guys that I played with became great, great baseball players. I ended up shifting, midway through to basketball. You know, and my family, my parents weren't really into sports. It's kind of a cultural thing. I'm going to be very different. God willing, with my son. But my parents were amazing, but they just weren't really into sports. So,
Yeah.
and in baseball, you kind of needed a little bit more direction, coaching, guidance, equipment. Whereas basketball, I could just pick up the rock and go shoot,
Yep.
and I did, and that's where I kind of drifted more into that and obviously fell in love with that. But I always have loved baseball as a student of the game, as a student of history, the pageantry, the heritage, the stats. I used to get back in the day when newspapers were still a thing. The Sunday edition of the Houston Chronicle used to have at the back of the sports section all the box scores, all the stats for all the teams, and I would open up that newspaper when I was 7 years old, man, and copy them into my own little baseball almanac, create my own thing. So I've always been into it. And I had the opportunity when I was running BSB and working with Kroger to start doing some campaigns with MLB athletes during COVID. Barry Larkin, Mookie Betts, Miguel Cabrera, Tim Anderson, just some great players. And really,
Some legendary
yeah,
players.
some legendary players, Gino Suarez, who's with the Reds again now.
Yeah.
And then really started growing those relationships. And then, like we talked about in the beginning, had this idea with Lark to take baseball to the Middle East and kind of my parents' homeland, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. I knew it was going to be difficult. Like on a 1 to 10, I felt it was going to be a solid 10, but it would turn out to be a 47. Because we had to build the whole ecosystem from scratch, man. Like
Yeah.
literally the national teams, the federations, the venues. We had to teach cameramen how to follow the ball because they'd never shot baseball before. They're used to cricket.
Yeah.
You don't realize that you got to tell people what first base and second base is. Like it's that
Yeah.
level. Teach sponsors, what the hell is this game? What are the rules? Like, um, I honestly didn't think about that enough before we started because I was so passionate about it. But we were able to do it. Launched 4 franchises, the first pro franchise in the history of India, first franchise history of Pakistan, a franchise in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Did multiple big events. Got a lot of MLB players playing in our event. Obviously, had 20 MLB guys invest in my league.
Yeah.
I was a majority shareholder and chairman and CEO. Had a great first season. Had 100 million viewers in our first season, and had some of the baseball guys say they wanted to take over. um, I didn't really want to leave at that time, but the more I started thinking about it, talking about it, the offer got to a place and the environment got to a place where, and my family life, to be honest, having a son that's about to turn 2 in a couple weeks, the
What?
sacrifice I've been making across, with my family being on the road all the time, I was like, you know what, if
Yeah.
you guys want it, go for it because we did have a difference in vision in terms of I really believe that this youth level is critical in order to grow any sport. And we start at the
Hmm.
top with the professional league, but if you don't really have a flourishing amateur youth system, as you know, you can't really build a fan base that's going to last for generations. So I
No.
love the perfect game model. I love the development aspect, the family aspect, the competitive aspect, the aspirational aspect. 90% of the MLB draft last year were perfect game athletes. 15,000 players have become MLB draft picks, 300,000 college commits. And you know how hard it is to go play sports in college,
Yes. It
So,
is.
so when I saw the numbers, I just felt like this brand too, PG, has so much, firepower in it that we could pour some gasoline and grow it. And that's my goal. I'm the chief marketing officer now. I'm part of the executive team and head of international. So, PG hasn't really grown internationally yet, but we're about to.
We're about to. That this is funny that you mentioned how important you feel that the youth in participation in baseball is, because my previous guest was Miss Colleen Mullen, and actually I'm wearing the sweatshirt that she sent me, and
Oh,
she is the vice president of global events at the NBA. And one of the things that they do every single year is they do about 6 to 7 programs each year in different locations across the
yep,
world that is called Basketball Without Borders.
yep,
And they host these high school and middle school top prospects from all over around the world. And she told me that it was like 70% of their participants make it to the NBA, and it sounds so similar to what you're
yeah,
saying about perfect game. That's just I love that there are people like you two that are focusing on the youth sports involvement, because you guys are right. The youth, if the youth are behind it, there is so much you can do with it if the youth are behind it.
Yeah, man, completely agree. And that's what I realized that I really was passionate about. I created a tournament with Baseball United called the Arab Classic, which
Yeah,
first time ever we got national teams, so amateur national teams to play baseball in a national tournament, an international tournament from India and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and Nepal and Bangladesh and Afghanistan and the UAE. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And obviously these kids can't compete with Team USA or Team Japan yet, but maybe one day they can and they will. And you got to start somewhere. You got to start inspiring and teaching and developing and enabling. And that really stuck with me, and it's still the most fun I've ever had. I had with Baseball United, and we're pretty much doing that with Perfect Game. And we're going to do an international tournament this coming Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's, with teams from Japan, with teams from USA, Mexico, at an elite level. I'm talking about like the best 15-year-old kids on the planet coming
yeah,
to play. There's so many tournaments that people don't, outside of the baseball world, don't fully know about yet, that we're going to make sure they know. We have an All American Classic game in Philadelphia in August this year. That's the best seniors in the country coming to play, baseball in Philly. So there's so many cool things that are happening. And like we talked about, we start young. I mean, we're doing things called ID camps for 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds to
yep,
help them understand what's the showcase, what's the development process, what do you need to train on, because all these kids, they have aspirations, to play. And there's a lot of opportunity, especially with NIL. We talked about it. There's a lot of opportunity. The D1 level, D2, D3, JUCO. It's not just about going pro, and
no,
it's even not just about playing in colleges. I mean, sports teaches you so much about yourself, about
life.
discipline, about life, about focus, about teamwork, about camaraderie.
Yeah,
When you can do
about
it,
how to do hard things.
how to do hard things. I mean, I remember seeing all the posts your mom posted, so proud of everything you did, Spencer. So, it brings families together too.
It does. It
Like
does.
families are traveling, watching these tournaments, watching these meets and these matches. And
Yeah.
that's like your childhood. Those are the memories that you have. So it's a beautiful thing, man. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I've actually been I've been coaching at my high school, so I'm the assistant swim coach for the high school swim team, and then this summer I'm coaching all kids from 6 to 18 years old on a summer swim team. And man, I'm literally so excited. I'm so on board with this perfect game mentality of the youth and the youth, because the youth are the key to the future, man. I have so much faith in these kids.
That's right, man. Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so tell me just quickly before we wrap up, tell me what is one thing that you have done recently with Perfect Game since you've been there over these last few months. What is your favorite project that you've encountered so far or started working on is in development? And then tell me what has been a challenge since the switch over from Baseball United to Perfect Game.
Man, there's so many things with Perfect Game, and some of them I can't talk about just yet because we're
Yep.
cooking them all up. But
Yes, sir.
I would say one big thing is just the international focus. I've spent the last 4 years really studying, learning, immersing myself in international baseball. I pride myself when I'm a leader, an entrepreneur, to know my shit, and do the research and meet the right people. I met over 40 different baseball federations, work with people across the globe, in baseball, from coaches and players to scouts. And now we're going to bring that to Perfect Game. And this December, we're doing something called the Pacific Baseball Championship. We're going to host it out in LA at the Dodgers minor league facility, in a town actually called Ontario, California, right outside LA.
Yeah.
Bringing teams from Asia as well as North America to compete. Again, like I said, the best 15-year-olds. It's called 15U, but the best 15-year-olds in their respective countries competing in a kind of World Baseball Classic type of vibe and format that I really see growing. And next year we're going to do it, in Japan. We're going to keep growing it from there. I'm excited to get back to Dubai, get back to India to help bring Perfect Game to those countries. They're going to be so excited because those kids want an opportunity to again go to college in the U.S. or be seen by big league scouts. And Perfect
Hmm.
Game has the most extensive database. Every college, every junior college, every pro team, uses the Perfect Game database. So if you come in and you go to one of our events, you get a profile, you get your metrics, you get your highlights, you get your video content, everything that a scout or recruiter or a staff member needs to evaluate you. And just getting in there gives you opportunity. And especially kids internationally, they never had that, man. I mean, I was
Yeah.
talking in Africa, in groups in Africa, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in South Africa, in Ethiopia. I mean, there's so much opportunity. And I told my friends at Baseball United, I said, I'm gonna see you around. I'll see you on the field. And it's all love until we compete. You know how it is. They're going to work on the pro stuff, and I hope they keep it going because that's been my baby, and I hope they keep it
Yeah.
growing. But me, I'm focusing on the youth, and that's
There we
16.
go.
I'm really excited about.
There we go. And then last but not least, say there is an 18-year-old kid, he's getting ready to graduate high school, and he wants to work in the sports world, whether it's marketing, whether it's a coach, whether it's, doing stats or whatever. What is your advice to that guy or girl that is 18 coming out of high school that wants to work in sports?
Well, 18, I think obviously you got the college option and to go through it and learn. And I think as you've learned as well, and what I learned is when you're in college, being very active in student activities, student government, sports, clubs, all that, philanthropies, to me, that probably taught me a lot more than the classroom taught me because you have to learn skills. You got to learn to speak, learn to pitch, learn to sell. Learning to sell is it might be the most important skill. And not selling like you're selling, used cars, but learning your audience, learning the right words, what I call self and situational awareness, knowing what to say, when, and how to say it, emotional intelligence, all that comes with more interactions with other people. So I think that's really important to learn in your college years. And then when you're ready to graduate college or when you're making that next step, or if you're deciding not to go to college, to me, it's more important, Spencer, to find the right person, the right mentor that you can learn from in your early years, because that is going to shape you a lot more than, what project you're working on or what brand or what sport. Like you may want to be working in the NFL, but if you find somebody that is a great mentor that can teach you things and, teach you skills, selling detergent like I did, somehow as you keep working and networking and learning, you're able to kind of maneuver yourself to where you want to go. And my dream, like you, when I was 18 years old, was to work in sports, and I took a long road to get there.
Yeah.
But man, everything taught me a lot along the way, and I feel blessed because I'm more prepared when I got here.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Kash, man, you are a book of knowledge and wisdom, and I can't thank you enough for joining me today on Ball Talk. I'm sure the listeners also would like to thank you for taking some time to join us in your busy life as you make this transition in the perfect game. If you ever need any help with any of those tournaments or anything, you know who to call, because I'll be there in a second helping you out, sir. So I wish you the best. I hope that that the 20 acres of land is going well. I hope that you guys get that all settled and built up soon. And if you guys ever need anything again, let me and my mom know, and we're right here.
Thank you, man. God bless you guys, and congratulations on the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's it for this episode of Ball Talk, my listeners, my friends and family. We'll see you next time for another episode. Thank you.